Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the debate. First of all, before I even start the debate, I would like to extend a warm thank you to my opponent for joining us, as well as to you, the judge or judges, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for the judging. Now, the resolution we have today is that the Saudi-led coalition has caused more harm than good. And I stand for an affirmation of that. So observation one is going to be resolution analysis. This debate is going to be defined by values. And observation two is going to be our framework, and that value is going to be net benefits. Observation four is going to be contentions. Contention one, terrorism. Subpoint one, link. The Saudis are a terrorist organization that targets civilians and civilian targets. Recently, the Saudis have actually bombed a hotel that was for only farmers and didn't really have any strategic value, showing that they actually are the embodiment of terrorism, which is the attacks on innocent civilians. In addition to bombing this hotel, they have also bombed sporting centers, industrial or residentials, bazaars, meeting places, all these things that have no strategic value from a military standpoint. And the reason why is actually evidenced in subpoint 2, which is our internal link. And they do this to strike fear into the civilians' hearts so that they are forced to cooperate with their demands. And that demand is to keep upright the democratic government turned dictatorship. Now, the Saudi-led coalition is on the side of the government, and that is because the government is a dictatorship, and so they shouldn't actually be on the side of that. And it's actually they are, as terrorists, they shouldn't be. It's not fair for them to lead a coalition because they are actually terrorists, and as you can see, they've embodied terrorism. Now, the impact of this subpoint 3 is going to be the spread of terrorism. If the Saudi-led coalition continues to be a coalition, not only are the Saudis going to spread terrorism by accidentally bombing innocent people, everyone who is participating in this coalition will be complicit with this terrorism. So if you are a United States citizen, you are actually complicit in the bombing of innocent people. So keep that in mind for a voter issue. Now, contention 2 is going to be democracy. Subpoint 1 for that is going to be the current government is corrupt and not a democracy, but rather a dictatorship. Now, the reason the entire Saudi-led coalition was started in the first place was actually because of the Shiites and the Houthi rebels fighting. Now, the Houthi rebels have historically been the minority in the government, and as such, the minority have been drowning out their voice. And so at that point, peaceful talks no longer were an option, and the only way to get their message of ending the dictatorship across was to actually fight for it. And that's how the Saudi-led coalition came about. And the Houthi rebels and the Shiites were just kind of battling for power. You had the minority trying to force their way into the majority, and the majority who had held sway for over 20 years not wanting to actually give up that majority. And so the Saudi-led coalition joined in on the side of the corrupt government. Therefore, the Saudi-led coalition is actually a factor in not allowing democracy to spread. Now, as you all know, the United States is a democracy, and so we want democracy to spread. And with the Saudi-led coalition attacking innocent people, spreading terrorism, and siding with the corrupt and dictatorish government, we are not allowing democracy to even have a chance to thrive or even a chance to grow. Subpoint 2, the internal link, is that the Saudi-led coalition is siding with the dictatorship and preventing democracy. Now, what I mean by that is that the government is no longer a democracy. It has evolved from a democracy into a dictatorship. No longer is it a free and honest election. It is the same person or same people every single time. And it has been for the past 20 years. The majority has always been in favor of the Shiites, and the Houthi rebels are the minority. And the majority wants to keep the minority out of the ability to change the dictatorship into a democracy. So subpoint 3 is going to be the impact. By disbanding the Saudi-led coalition, we actually allow Iran to have freedom. We allow them to have freedom and to have democracy and have the ability to make their own choices. So judge today as you are looking at my resolution, and then also, or my speech, as well as my opponents. Just remember, the value here today is that we are debating net benefits. We need to look at the fact that the Saudi-led coalition is a coalition led by a terrorist organization that attacks innocent civilians and does not care about innocent civilians, but rather keeping a dictatorship in power. They do not want democracy, and by you actually voting the negation, you are actually saying that you agree with the fact that democracy should not be an option and that terrorism is good in that. So as an American, as you sit there judging, just remember that voting anything but AF means that you are complicit as well in acts of terrorism against innocent people and the refusal to allow democracy to even have a chance to grow. And with that, I urge a strong affirmation vote.